Great. Okay, our next, our final donor that we're going to hear about is the Disney Corporation, based out of Florida. And Erica Cochrane, who is going to be presenting this from the International Crane Foundation, they're a recipient of Disney funding, couldn't be here today due to some visa glitches. Her colleague Karen Morrison is here. You want to just raise your hand, Karen? We've got a recording of Erica's presentation that she sent to us today. We wanted to hear this directly from her and how the Disney granting approaches have actually changed institutionalization of adaptive management within their organization. So what I'm going to play right now is a brief presentation by Erica, and then we'll go on from there. Okay.
Hello from Wisconsin. My name is Erica Cochrane, and I am the Conservation Measures Manager for the International Crane Foundation. The International Crane Foundation is a small, mid-sized conservation organization whose mission is to conserve the 15 species of cranes in the wild and the ecosystems on which they, countless other species, and many marsh.
Let's try that again.
Hello from Wisconsin. My name is Erica Cochrane, and I am the Conservation Measures Manager for the International Crane Foundation. The International Crane Foundation is a small, mid-sized conservation organization whose mission is to conserve the 15 species of cranes in the wild and the ecosystems on which they, countless other species, and many marginalized human communities depend. So my presentation is roughly broken down into an overview of Disney's Reverse the Decline program, of which we are one of 10 recipients. And the International Crane Foundation work to take up the open standards, as well as introducing you to some of the resource documents that I've provided as part of this workshop that I hope are helpful. So Disney's Reverse the Decline program, I believe, is a really fantastic example of a donor's grant program that is helping the conservation sector move forward towards practicing better evidence-based adaptive management, and will eventually help us to achieve greater and longer-lasting conservation results. So in 2014, they launched this new initiative aimed at reversing the decline of threatened species by partnering with leading nonprofit organizations and by supporting their scientific research, strategic action, and community engagement. Doesn't really sound much different than a lot of the other work. Isn't most conservation-focused philanthropy aimed at reversing the decline of threatened species or threatened ecosystems? Well, Disney's new program is a little different in that they've been listening to the conservation organizations like us, saying we need more stable, bigger, and longer-term funding to really have an impact. So that's what Disney tried to do. In order to do that, they focused on 10 species or species guilds, and they provided 10 awards with guaranteed funding of at least $250,000 a year for 10 years. So not super large grants, but still a pretty good-sized grant. However, this initiative was far bigger than Disney Conservation Fund could afford. They needed to go to Disney Corporate to fund the program. And in order to get Disney Corporate to support it, they really had to convince them that by this new approach and this much greater investment and longer-term investment, that it would pay off in a much greater impact and really a reverse of the decline of these key species. So because of that, there were requirements with accepting these awards. And the first was that in the first year of funding, we would use the open standards to develop a 10-year strategic plan that demonstrated how we plan to reverse the decline. If we didn't have the open standards expertise in-house, then we were expected to go out and contract that expertise. So we contracted the Foundations of Success. And then, furthermore, they also expected us to continue to use the open standards to practice adaptive management, including submitting formal mid-year and end-of-year reports with specific expectations that we showed how we were evaluating our actions and adjusting as we go. And finally, Marathi strongly encouraged us to use Marathi in the development of our strategic plans and use Marathi Share in our reporting and the demonstration of our adaptive management process. To help us with this, Disney went above and beyond just the award each year, and Disney dedicated staff. So each of the 10 awardees have a dedicated staff member who acts as their liaison and part of their core team, and helps connect them with all things Disney, all the Disney expertise and connections. And all of us have gotten more from that than just the $250,000 a year. In addition, Disney paid for the planning. They allowed us to take that first year and really think big picture, and to have enough money to pull in the right people to do that big picture thinking. Often when you're applying for a grant, they're expecting that you've done all that planning in advance. And yet it's really difficult to bring people together and to have them think long term and to think big if there's no funding behind it. The other thing that Disney allowed us to do is to pay for Marathi Share, which, although it's a very small cost compared to our other software costs within the organization for finance, fundraising, human resources, it still would have been hard for us to afford it, especially at the beginning when we really didn't know its value and we were just starting out. In addition, Disney has given us lots of support and guidance as we have been reporting and learning as we go in really doing adaptive management. And if you're more interested in that process, I'm presenting again tomorrow morning. So you can come to that presentation where I'll actually be online live instead of recorded. And finally, Disney holds a formal review with us where a number of Disney staff get on a call with us and they talk us through figuring out how we do adaptive management, how we checked on our indicators and checked on our situation and adapted to make sure that we really can have the impact that we want. So Disney's Reverse the Decline program is really instrumental in helping the International Cranes Foundation really want to take up the open standards and apply them across the organization. But they were one of a number of different things that were happening at the same time that helped us along this journey. So as most journeys are, punctuated by the people that help us grow and learn. So is this one. So our journey started with Rich Belfast coming back to the organization from being away for a while and learning from working with the World Wildlife Fund and using the open standards in Zambia to come back and really want us to do a better job of evidence-based conservation, be able to demonstrate impact in our projects. Then soon after that, Arlyne Johnson returned back to Wisconsin, a long-term friend and colleague of the International Crane Foundation, and she started working for the Foundation for Success. She also started teaching a conservation planning course at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, in which I was a project representative in her first class and have been in most of her classes since then, where a core group of students used one of the International Crane Foundation's projects to develop a plan. So I learned about the open standards and coaching from her. And then she introduced us to Nick Slofsky, who the two of them became some of our senior advisors. And through their guidance, Rich was able to convince the International Crane Foundation Board of Directors to create a new conservation measures program, and within the next year, in 2014, to move me over to head that program full time. That was the same year that we got awarded a Reverse the Decline grant for our Siberian crane program. And I became a conservation coach and started working with some of the franchises, or getting associated with some of the franchises and some of the working groups. And I also had the great pleasure of going to my first Conservation Coaches Network rally in Spain and meeting several of you, and meeting Annette Stewart, where I somehow convinced her to include the International Crane Foundation as one of her case studies in her Fulbright, looking at how small and mid-sized organizations can do a better job of managing the business of conservation. And if you haven't looked at some of her products, you really should, because they're amazing. Through her guidance and coaching and learning from her, we applied and became one of the Conservation Measures Partnership members. And we also initiated an open standards pilot within the International Crane Foundation, which was intentionally moving beyond just adopting the open standards within our projects to help our projects be more effective, but adopting the open standards across our organization and really trying to institutionalize it. Through that, we started really working on using Meraki and Meraki Share to support our institutionalization of the open standards. And then I started working really closely with Warren Lockwood at Sitka, who is the technologies is the one who manages Meraki and Meraki Share. And then one of our main clients, if you will, in our open standards pilot was Karen Morrison, who's in the room with you, who was our Africa program director. Well, she serves actually as a joint employee of the International Crane Foundation and the Endangered Wildlife Trust. And the Endangered Wildlife Trust is our sister organization and our implementer of our Africa program. Karen was able to convince Yolande Friedman about the value of adopting and institutionalizing the open standards. So the Endangered Wildlife Trust has also joined us in this journey of institutionalizing the open standards. And together we are working through that change management, which is really about getting people to see that we want to change and getting them to on the same page for that desire for change, and then addressing all the barriers that come up. So the next thing that I want to do is shift into introducing you to some of the resource documents that I've made available that hopefully they're valuable to you. Please don't use them as verbatim, don't quote the International Crane Foundation or share them as documents for the Disney or the International Crane Foundation, but use them to pirate them and adapt them to your own needs and interests. So I have them broken down into 3 different parts. One is Disney's Reverse the Decline. And these are basically 2 documents that are Disney's reporting guidelines and our notes, our internal notes on how our team is to meet those guidelines. So general reporting and then our specific guidelines from reporting through Meraki and Meraki Share. The next section is about things that we did to help create a desire for change. And this started with Annette's Fulbright study of the International Crane Foundation, which then we adapted into an 8-page document for our program committee of the board, which is the committee responsible for our strategic planning, to introduce them to the open standards and why institutionalizing them would be a really great thing for the organization to do in order to achieve our mission. We also gave them some examples of what might come out of the system once we get our project-based information institutionalized. Then we gave them some examples of the types of reports that might come out, like a crane report card or a project prospectus. And I have to say that I pirated a lot of these ideas from Bush Heritage Australia and the types of reports that they're putting out, and from other organizations. That's exactly what you should do, is take it and use it as a example. And the last thing that we did, the last set of documents that I'm sharing with you are things that we have produced to try and reduce the barriers to this change. And 2 of them are about getting information into the system by people who aren't quite ready to use the system. So we have both a spreadsheet and a fillable spreadsheet form with drop-down menus and a fillable MS Word template that collects information about ongoing projects that then we can put into Meraki and Meraki Share that then can help people to start to use those systems. But at least we can get a basis, and then when we have the chance to go and work with those individual project teams, we have a good, strong place to start from. And the final example is how we're using our Meraki Share program to collect and tag our project-based information in different ways so that we can create specific reports that are meaningful to both organizations in the future, like pulling out all the information on a particular single crane species, or showing how we are working to achieve certain biodiversity targets. And lots of other examples. So it's showing you our taxonomy that we've created in our Meraki Share program. And I've run out of time, and I just want to close by saying that if you're excited about this stuff, please contact me or corner Karen, who's there, or Annette, or Arlyne, or yeah, or talk to one of us. And I also want to say how sad I am that I'm not there with you, and how much I hope that you all have an inspiring and transformative rally.
Great. Okay.